Welcome to Shugyo, reflections on the path to self-mastery and forging the way. My name is Adam Mitchell. I'm your host and fellow student along this path. I can remember in 1996, I was training at a seminar with Shoto Tanemura Sensei. He was teaching some Koppo Jitsu basics. And in this training, I somehow figured that, of course, I knew better. As a result, because I knew better, I could elevate my training experience inside the container of what he was teaching. I could go hard, I could go fast, I could go real, and I'll never forget the look that he gave me when he saw me doing this. I have to say, he said nothing to me. He didn't say anything directly to me. I kept going hard, and instead of following precisely what he said to do, I just pushed and pushed and pushed. And you know what? I know that it aggravated pretty much every training partner that I worked with. But until I got into the rotation with this one specific fellow, he was a sixth Dan, and he simply, when I began training with him, he simply looked at me and he said, "Stop." And then he inquired, standing there with all the people around us in the dojo training. The two of us were just standing there looking at each other. I put my hands down. I said, "All right, what's going on?" And he said, "Why are you here?" And my response was, if I recall correctly, was something like, "Well, to learn from Tanemura Sensei." And his response was, "What you're doing and what he is teaching are not the same thing. So why are you here?" My emotions were a little bit split at the time because I really felt like a dipshit, but I also felt as though I was being challenged, and I kind of appreciated that. And the problem was, as I look back at it, I was really doing nothing other than occupying the valuable time that others had invested in learning. They had invested in traveling here to study with such a great teacher and to immerse themselves in this art and to work with other high-level artists. And here I am robbing that experience of them. But I didn't care, because with my own arrogance, my own immature desire, I was out to pursue something really that I knew nothing about. I was doing technique that was and should have been really reserved for the senior students, but because there was one person there that thought well of me and invited me into the training, and he was trusted by the other senior students, I'm sure that I did a really good job of embarrassing him for being there. I had this notion, really, when I was there, that I could kick all of their asses, take that out on the street. And that was really my attitude as a young man. That's how I approached this. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was after. So why shouldn't I be training hard? And why shouldn't I be looking for that kind of stuff in this training? As I look back at it, I was really kind of making it up as I went. I was playing along. I was trying to make it real and show up as someone that I really wasn't. There was quite a bit of insecurity that I was probably struggling with. And it's something that I see constantly now as the role of a teacher. The students coming into my dojo, when I'm at seminars, when I'm even among my own colleagues, I really get how Mr. Tanemura Sensei may have felt looking at me. I think I understand that now, and I can feel that letdown. But following this experience, I don't think that my relationship with anyone in that room was ever the same. And why should it have been? I wasn't there to learn as they were. However, that one lesson really projected me into a new way of approaching Budo, where I realized several years later what I was deeply missing. And when I left that training and I left the experience, I specifically recall, even as young and as immature as I was in those days, as angry as I was, as insecure as I may have been, I really felt as though there was a huge space that was missing. There was something there that I didn't get. I remember driving home from that seminar that had happened about 4 hours from where my dojo was, where I lived. And I remember this sort of void, this like, I know that there was something there and it wasn't made available to me, or I didn't make myself available to it. And what did that mean? Some years later, I was able to discover that. And what it was is it was to learn how to learn. I'm standing in a converted garage in the suburbs of Baltimore on a February morning. I had been invited personally by Manaka Sensei after writing him a letter to train with him. Sensei was teaching at the time Jutai Jitsu, and it was myself, and I was with only four other students. I remember it was absolutely frigid in the dojo. And he explains to me in that training, one of the first things that Sensei explained to me immediately, that there are four pillars of Kobudo, and they are to have a straight back, to have low hips, to have your elbows in, and to be able to move from your tanden. But fundamentally, for right now, only focus on three, and always fall back on these three. Always say to yourself, if a technique isn't working, check these three, then move on to the fourth. Straight back. Is your back straight? Or are you lurching? Are you off balance? Are your shoulder lines not in alignment with the hips? Low hips. So do you have stability in your legs? Are your knees in alignment over your feet? And your elbows in? Are your shoulders relaxed? Is your neck relaxed? Is the muscles in your face relaxed? And then it clicked. While my approach to training in that time, since I had been at that seminar with Tanimura Sensei, my approach to training had matured. I was less arrogant and more focused on fundamentals. This had all helped me to be, more accepted into this dojo for sure. But I really still had no template to understand what I was doing. Up to this point, even though Manaka Sensei had welcomed me into the training, even though my own dojo had grown, I still really didn't understand how to learn. I'd been winging it. It was sort of this combination of my own desire to fight. I was grappling competitively at the time, and this had all kind of morphed with my own attraction to Japanese culture and sort of this borderline sadistic willingness to do exactly what some Japanese dude in a gi was telling me to do. So with this sort of this new model that Manaka Sensei had given to me, I had something to always keep me in check. It was like a new reference for everything that my body was doing. Finally, there was something, even though there were all these books, even though there were all these manuals, there were all these things that I had gotten from other instructors at workshops and seminars, and I had traveled and I had trained. I really didn't know how to learn this stuff. Like in Zazen, when my mind wanders, I would return to one. When my techniques wandered, now I could return to these pillars that Manaka Sensei had taught me. Is my back straight? With my head, is it leaning one way or the other? Are my knees bent and pointing in the same direction as my feet? Are my elbows in? And like I just said, are my shoulders relaxed? Are my hands soft? And without fail, I probably almost never was able to say yes to each of the question whenever I felt stuck. And this became the compass towards discovering my errors along the path and in the Kobudo. And this really sort of set me up to look for what are the pillars in the next step? What are the pillars in this learning that I really have to use as my foundation? What are those points in what it is that I'm learning that I can really use as my compass? And these four pillars: straight back, bent knees, low hips, elbows in, and tanden. Those four things, the three things from my body, to this day, they are always what I follow up with whenever anything goes wrong. So suddenly this whole shut up and train attitude shifted to shut up and learn. And through this, I discovered more about the sort of those harder to learn things, like Kyusho. I became a student of shiatsu. I also more deeply really understood and found more reason to push my own healing practices and my Qigong pursuits. I became more fluent in looking in a photograph of a student and being able to root out the course of a technique and being able to see what was going on, to be able to see what was happening before and what that person, what would be happening after, just by what sensei had taught me. I was able to see the sort of the overt flaws or the obvious impact and even deadliness of a technique. And I discovered new lessons in the position just of someone's fingers. I'd be able to look at someone doing a lunge punch or a movement with a sword, and just to look at the alignment of the feet, I knew what the body was doing. I'd look at the lean of the shoulders. I'd look at the direction of the hips. I'd look at their kami in relationship to the direction of their nose. I'd be able to see the tension in their eyes would be an indicator of what muscles were engaged in their face and what that meant to their neck and thus what it meant to their spine. And just by learning how to learn, everything had completely changed. You know, there's this saying in the art that I study, and it's kindred arts, Kasumi no ho. It's like the lifting the veil of fog. You know, it's talked about a lot in our art. And it kind of has this like mystical coolness, like, the Kasumi no ho. And I really wonder how many high-ranking martial artists in this art really understand this, or are they simply kind of playing in the fog as I was? I challenge you in this reflection. I challenge you to learn a little bit more this week on how to learn. I'm not challenging you to learn something new. I'm not challenging you to look at how you're learning. I'm challenging you to discover one new way that you can become a better student. I want you to consider this week, what is something that I can do so that I can become better at learning this art? Maybe refrain from shouting the anthem to others, shut up and train, and begin whispering to yourself, shut up and learn. And it's really not that hard. In fact, we can start now. Example, is your back straight? Shugyo is brought to you by the Yasaragi Dojo, a traditional Japanese martial arts school and nonprofit 501c3 organization located in New York. I'm your host, Adam Mitchell, and I truly hope that you found some value and inspiration from this conversation. If you'd like to learn more about our dojo, yes, it's an actual physical dojo, not just some virtual one made up on the internet, find us on the web at yasaragidojo.com. The link is in the show notes. Or go ahead and access our free mobile app for iPhone and Android. There, you can access our daily training, coaching, live streams, meditations, workshops, and both online and in-person retreats. Our work depends on the generosity of our supporters, dedicated students around the world, and you by listening to this episode. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel, and you'll be updated on new episodes and reflections as they roll out. And if you know someone who will enjoy the conversation that we had today, please go ahead and share. Once again, my name is Adam. This is Shugyo. Until next time.